Trump promised cheaper prices in eggs, gas, grocery, but Americans got higher bills. Gas isn't $1.98. Eggs didn't drop 94%. Groceries aren't cheaper. Did he lie? But here's the twist. This wasn't a mistake. It was the plan. Trump didn't fix the problem. He sold a story where repetition mattered more than reality. And controlling the narrative hid the true cost from those forced to pay it. The real question is, who actually wins when Americans are told they're winning, even as their wallets say otherwise? Because this isn't just about prices going up. It's about how long people will accept economic pain, while those in power profit from the illusion. Before we uncover the truth behind rising prices, let's revisit where this narrative began. President Trump stood before the American people, whether behind a podium, in front of cameras, or through the rapid-fire posts on social media that have become his signature weapon. With absolute confidence, he declared that gas prices had fallen to $1.98 per gallon in several states. He didn't stop there. He went on to boast that egg prices had plummeted by 94%, and that groceries, the very symbol of everyday American life, were finally getting cheaper under his leadership. These weren't offhand remarks, but as those words echoed across newsrooms, social feeds, and political circles, there was one place where this narrative collapsed instantly: the real world. Because while Trump was busy crafting a story of falling prices, Americans were facing a very different reality every time they left their homes. At gas stations across the country, drivers didn't see $1.98 glowing on the pumps. According to AAA data, the cheapest state average wasn't even close. It stood stubbornly at $2.70, with the national average locked at $3.17 per gallon. Yet, undeterred by facts, Trump doubled down the very next day, claiming that 3 states had hit that magical $1.98 mark. But for millions of Americans watching their fuel budgets stretch thinner, these weren't just political games. They were daily frustrations wrapped in false hope. And then came the eggs, or more precisely, the myth of cheap eggs. Trump's claim that prices had dropped 94% was nothing short of economic fantasy. Any shopper walking through a grocery aisle could see the truth stamped clearly on every carton. $6.23 per dozen, the highest price in US history. Yet Federal Consumer Price Index data told the opposite story. In March 2025 alone, grocery prices spiked by 0.49%, the sharpest monthly increase since October 2022. Year over year, prices were up 2.41%, marking the highest annual rise since mid-2023. And here's the kicker. All of this happened before Trump's sweeping 10% tariffs took effect in April. In other words, Americans were already grappling with rising costs, and the worst was yet to come. So why does this matter? Because these aren't just harmless exaggerations. They reveal a deeper strategy, one where economic hardship is disguised beneath layers of political spin. Americans don't need a fact-checker to tell them what they already know. Every visit to the gas station, every grocery run, every glance at a swelling receipt is a harsh reminder that the cost of living isn't falling, it's climbing. What was promised as relief turned into distraction, leaving Americans to face rising costs alone. While the headlines fixate on Trump's bold declarations about gas, eggs, and groceries, few are asking the deeper question: why are prices rising in the first place? The answer isn't hidden. It's embedded in plain sight within Trump's signature economic weapon: tariffs. Originally sold as a tool to punish foreign competitors and revive American industry, these sweeping trade penalties have quietly mutated into something far more dangerous: a silent tax on every American household. When Trump announced his 10% global tariffs in April 2025, he framed them as a patriotic duty, a way to make America rich by forcing other countries to pay up. What was marketed as a strike against foreign competitors quietly transformed into a silent tax, one that every American household is now forced to pay while Washington claims victory. The impact isn't speculative. It's already unfolding. Industry experts estimate that food prices alone will rise by 2.8% due to these tariffs, with fresh produce expected to spike by 4%. But averages don't tell the full story. For lower-income families who spend a disproportionate share of their income on essentials, this isn't just inflation, it's economic suffocation. Companies respond not just by raising prices, but by shrinking product sizes, a tactic known as shrinkflation, giving you less for the same price, or in many cases, more for much more. And while corporate giants like Walmart or Costco can delay the impact thanks to vast inventories and global leverage, smaller retailers and local grocers feel the pressure immediately. They don't have the luxury of absorbing costs. They survive by passing them on. Tariffs were never about making foreign nations pay. They were about creating the appearance of strength while quietly transferring the cost to American consumers. Every tariff dollar collected by the government represents higher prices paid by citizens. And yet, this economic sleight of hand is paraded as a victory. Proof, Trump claims, that America is getting richer. But richer for whom? For Washington's balance sheet? And the most dangerous part? Many Americans don't even realize they're paying for it until it's too late. While political leaders argue over trade balances and tariff revenues, something far more subtle and far more damaging is happening beneath the surface of the US economy. Even giants like PepsiCo and Campbell aren't immune, reporting sharp sales declines as Americans abandon brand loyalty for survival. Consumers aren't adjusting because they want to. They're adjusting because they have no choice. Shopping trips are becoming shorter, more frequent, and more calculated, with buyers focusing only on immediate necessities. But the most dangerous consequence isn't visible on a receipt. It's psychological. When consumers start expecting prices to rise, when they preemptively cut back because they no longer trust stability, the economy shifts from growth to defensive mode. Tariffs, by design, were supposed to protect American industries. Instead, they've introduced uncertainty into every corner of daily life, turning routine purchases into moments of financial anxiety. Meanwhile, businesses aren't just reacting, they're recalibrating their entire strategies. Supply chains, once optimized for efficiency, are now tangled in a web of tariffs, forcing costly reroutes and renegotiations. And as costs rise, employers quietly pull back, delaying hires, freezing wages, or passing costs onto workers in less visible ways. All of this unfolds while Washington points to tariff revenues as proof of success, ignoring the fact that these revenues are extracted directly from the people they claim to defend. Worse still, the longer this continues, the more permanent the damage becomes. Consumer habits formed under pressure don't simply revert when policies change. Once trust in price stability is broken, it lingers, shaping how people spend, save, and invest for years to come. The short-term political gain of looking tough on trade is paving the way for long-term economic fragility. The rising prices, shrinking products, and strained household budgets are obvious to anyone living through them. Wholesale egg prices dipped slightly. Suddenly, that became a 94% drop in consumer prices, even when shoppers were still paying record highs. A minor fluctuation in gas prices? Trump amplified it into a mythical return to $1.98 fuel, despite national averages telling a different tale. And when overall consumer prices showed the smallest seasonal adjustment, it was paraded as evidence that inflation was under control, conveniently ignoring the broader trend of escalating costs. This isn't accidental messaging. It's a deliberate strategy rooted in perception management. By flooding the public discourse with bold, confident claims, regardless of accuracy, Trump sought to create a reality where facts became secondary to repetition. If people hear prices are falling enough times, the hope is they'll question their own experiences before questioning the narrative. It's a tactic that blurs the line between governance and marketing, and it works for a while, until receipts pile up, fuel tanks empty faster, and families notice that their weekly grocery bill demands sacrifices they didn't have to make before. And as Americans struggle to adjust, they're told they should be grateful that this is the price of winning the trade war. Here's the real twist. The battle wasn't being fought overseas. It was being fought in the minds of Americans, where belief in a strong economy could be manufactured through confident headlines, even as that economy slowly hollowed out beneath them. This isn't just economic policy, it's narrative manipulation, where controlling the story becomes more important than addressing reality. After stripping away the headlines, the political bravado, and the carefully crafted illusions, we're left with a far more uncomfortable truth, one that no speech or social media post can hide. The gas isn't cheaper. They've made Americans pay. So now comes the real question, the one no one in Washington wants to answer. Who actually benefits from this economic game? It's certainly not the families watching their grocery bills climb while being told they should feel victorious. It's not the small businesses forced to raise prices or shutter entirely because they can't navigate the tangled web of global tariffs. And it's definitely not the workers whose paychecks remain stagnant while the cost of living inches higher with every policy announcement. The truth is, this version of economic success was never designed for the average citizen. It was designed to serve a narrative, one where strength is measured by confrontation, where tariffs are wielded like weapons, and where the fallout is quietly absorbed by those with no voice in trade negotiations. The government collects tariff revenue and declares it a win, but every dollar earned comes directly from the pockets of consumers, not foreign powers. But perhaps the most dangerous part isn't the immediate financial strain, it's the precedent being set that leaders can rewrite reality with enough confidence that policy failures can be disguised as victories, and that the people footing the bill will be too distracted, too overwhelmed, or too misinformed to push back. So ask yourself, is this truly about protecting America's future, or is it about protecting a political image at any cost? How long can a nation sustain itself when its citizens are told they're winning, even as they're losing ground every day? And most importantly, when will Americans stop accepting the price of a trade war they never signed up for? Because the hidden risk isn't just rising prices, it's accepting that economic pain is simply the cost of patriotism, while those in power profit from the illusion. While Trump proclaims that America is thriving, the average citizen faces a different reality. One where groceries cost more, gas prices stay high, and breakfast eggs become a luxury item. The true cost of this tariff-driven strategy isn't measured in government revenue. It's measured in every dollar that disappears from household budgets. Drop a comment for more breaking news.